Good afternoon and welcome to the College of Continuing and Professional Studies webinar, Supporting Neurodivergence in the Workplace. Thank you so much for joining us. Next slide, please. My name is Shanta Bulai, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. If you have future questions about this webinar, other programs we offer, the college's contact information will be on the last slide of this presentation. I am delighted to introduce the topic for today's webinar, Supporting Neurodivergence in the Workplace. According to YouGov.com, approximately 1 in 5 Americans identify as neurodivergent. While research shows that neurodiverse teams can be up to 30% more productive and make fewer errors, unemployment rates for our neurodivergent individuals remain as high as 40%. This disconnect points to a gap in the understanding and support of our neurodivergent colleagues within the workplace. By addressing this gap, we can better value our neurodivergent colleagues and create pathways for them to thrive and succeed. So join us in this webinar in which we will define what neurodivergence means in workplace contexts, explore how organizations are successfully supporting neurodivergent employees, discuss how to raise awareness and build colleague support, identify strategies you can implement in your own workplace, and lastly, formulate next steps to take in the workplace. Thank you so much, Patricia, for being with us today. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you, Shanta. Thank you very, very much. And welcome, everyone. I'm going to share the agenda right off the bat here so that everybody knows what we're doing today. So here's a welcome. I'm going to do some introductions of myself a little bit deeper. Land acknowledgements, share statistics with you, which Shanta already shared some. Share also definitions, neurodivergence, neurotypical, and what all this means. We're going to look at the neurodivergent umbrella, workplace challenges. And I think that's why many of us are here today, to find out what it is that we can learn about neurodivergence in the workplace, the challenges it may present, opportunities that are there for us to really take advantage of, and then look more closely at masking the inequities that exist here, strategies for us to take in the workplace, a little bit of a focus on girls and women and how it has differed for this group, supportive organizations that I recommend that you take a look at their websites and really to get for more ideas about what to do, and of course, tips and next steps for you. And please, as Shanta said, send your questions in and we will address them at the end. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. It is quite a pleasure for me to be here with you again today. So, bienvenidos, welcome. Here's my introduction. I decided to do it with some geographical perspective here. So, I am the daughter of Mexican immigrants, and I was born in the great city of Chicago, and that's the Chicago River on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. So, that's where born, raised, did all my formal education along with my siblings. I left Chicago for over to Los Angeles, not to go to Hollywood, but it just that's what's most recognizable about the LA area, which is where I lived for 10 years. Met my partner and boomerang back to Minnesota, because I do believe that is what happens with Minnesotans. They bring us back. So here we've made our life, Minneapolis, St. Paul. There's the two images on the upper left-hand corner for us. And now I've been here at the university 10 years, just shy of 10 years this time around, but I was here in the early 90s as well in the Office of the General Counsel. And then more recently in the Office of Human Resources, and now with you, coming to you from libraries. I've done this work for a very long time, formally for the last 10 years, but I have always interwoven this type of work in everything that I do. We have 3 young adult children, my husband and I, why the pictures are so relevant. One lives in Chicago with her partner, one lives in Los Angeles with his partner, and our third lives in Seattle with her partner. So I thought it would be kind of fun to show you these images. And of course, on the lower left-hand corner is the image of Walter Library, which I think is just a gorgeous image of the libraries here at the University of Minnesota. So to tie it up, our 3 children are the grandchildren of 4 immigrant grandparents. So the importance of that is so incredibly important to me as well. So our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the University of Minnesota Twin Cities is built within the traditional homelands of the Dakota people. It is important to acknowledge the peoples on whose land we live, learn, and work. We seek to improve, strengthen relations with our tribal nations. We acknowledge that we're not enough. support resource program, increase access to all aspects of higher education for American Indian students, staff, faculty, and community members. This is true. This is a fact. This is our history. And I also believe that words aren't enough, which is why I'm going to share the next slides with you. We have 11 federal I think it is a way for you to do more than just say words. You can learn about these different nations. You can see what their calendars are like. You can maybe even visit them during one of their events that are open to the public. All of this will only improve when we create relationships. And in the next slide, I go a little further by sharing the 4 tribal colleges in Minnesota: Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College, Leech Lake Tribal College, Red Lake Nation College, which is right on Washington, very close to where I'm at here at Wilson Library on the west bank of the University of Minnesota. And lastly, White Earth Tribal College and Tribal and Community College. So these are 4 tribal colleges that, again, you can access their website. You can see their opportunities for you to get involved, maybe to one of their events or something of that nature. But I do encourage you to connect. So thank you for that. So let me share some statistics now going to our topic. So according to Deloitte Center for Integrated Research 2024, estimates suggest that neurodiverse individuals, neurodivergent, represent a significant portion of the population, with figures ranging from 15 to 20%, with neurodiverse professionals making up an estimated 17% of the workforce. So that's roughly 1 in 5, 1 in 6. So let's just look at the numbers that are here, count, and you can see they are present among us in the workforce, which is fantastic. Their report identifies 5 innovative drivers neurodiverse employees contribute: diverse cognitive approaches, their new ideas, how they approach ideas is very different. Breaking group think, we often fall into everybody just doing the same thing out of pressure or peer pressure. Our neurodivergent folks do not feel that pressure in the same way often, and they help us to break that groupthink. Their resilience, their agility, and again, the problem-solving approaches that they take are very unique. Deep focus, able to dive into the nitty-gritty and really go into the detail work, and perseverance, will not give up. Expanding your customer perspective to make you realize possibly individuals that you are missing. The 3 words that are highlighted is because they should say neurodivergent, and I just wanted that for you to realize that. The American Disabilities Act, also known as the ADA, protects neurodivergence as a disability. The ADA defines a person with a disability as someone who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Not every neurodivergent person considers themselves disabled, and that's important for us to understand. The work environment needs to be considered. For example, a person with dyslexia with predominantly reading comprehension symptoms may severely struggle in an academic setting and may require some type of accommodations. But the same individual may not be affected in the workplace environment where reading and writing are not required. So it's important for you to, 1, understand which of the neurodivergent types they are so that then you can address it. So important to note. So neurodiversity. Judy Singer, an Australian sociologist, is credited with coining the term neurodiversity, defines it as a biological truism that refers to the limitless variability of human nervous systems on the planet, in which no two can ever be exactly alike due to the influence of environmental factors. So to Singer, it was important to also take into account the environment. Neurodivergence. This term was coined by Cassian Asasumasa in the late 1990s. Means having a neurocognitive experience, how the brain processes information that diverges from what is considered typical. No two brains are alike. Neurodivergent people experience and react to the world differently to neurotypical people. So you have neurodivergent and you have neurotypical. There is no agreed list of who is considered neurodivergent. The term was meant to be inclusive, whose neurocognitive functioning diverges from dominant societal norms in multiple ways. It was to not exclude anyone. Neurodiversity encompasses both neurodivergent and neurotypical. And in the next slide, we'll see what this looks like. I think this really helps. So neurotypical, neurodivergent. They are generally two categories of neurodiversity. So neurotypical, individuals whose brains functions, processing, and behaviors align with typical development, and who cultivate organizational and interpersonal skills at the same rate as their peers. So these are individuals that fall into the normal path of the way things are done, right? We are considered neurotypical. I am a neurotypical individual. I fall under this category. Neurodivergent, individuals who process information atypically for their age. Neurodivergent individuals' brains function differently, not incorrectly. Again, not incorrectly compared to most peers. And I think that's a really important distinction. So neurodivergent brains think differently, learn differently, and interact differently, not incorrectly. Their perspective is different and brings value to everyone, especially in the workplace. So here is our neurodivergent umbrella. And as you can see, some of these, I think many of you might be familiar with: ADHD, dyslexia. We have Down syndrome there, bipolar, autism, epilepsy. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. And it's important for us to get as familiar as we can with these different forms of neurodivergence. And here I listed them for you. And once again, you will be able to access, once you have access to the webinar, for you to look at these and do some deep dives into them. Acquired brain injury, traumatic brain injury, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, antisocial personality disorder, autism spectrum disorder, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, dissociative identity disorder, and others specified: dissociative disorder, Down syndrome, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, dyslexia, dyspraxia. So some have to do with numbers, some have to do with location, some have to do with writing. So it's really important for us to understand what some of these conditions may be. Epilepsy, fetal alcohol syndrome disorders, generalized anxiety disorder, histrionic personality disorder, highly sensitive personality, misphonia, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, sensory processing disorder, schizophrenia, I put that one down twice, sorry about that, synesthesia, and tic disorder. So all of these fall under the umbrella. Now, if you listen to me say these, about half of them ended in the word disorder. And I wanted to just highlight that because in New Zealand, Aotearoa, land of the long white cloud, TIPO, a non-for-profit organization, launched a few years ago in 2020 an online dictionary glossary for mental health, addiction, and disability sector. So the glossary is known as the Te Reo Hapai, the language enrichment, and it's in Maori, the native language of New Zealand. It focused on using words with humanity and dignity in mind, and it replaced words that stigmatize and discriminated. So in this glossary, you will not find the word disorder. For attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, the ADHD, In this glossary, the Te Rahapai, the word used is aroriri tini. And the word translates into this. And notice there's no mention of disorder. The word translates into attention goes to many things. Dr. Praslova, who is the author of the book, The Canary Code, which I highly recommend, and a lot of the work that we're going to look at today comes from her work, says this. This word is an example of a more accurate and intentionally non-stigmatizing, non-judgmental language. She asks you to consider a busy ER room or looking for food sources in the wild, having the condition attention goes to many things would be a benefit, and it would not be considered a deficit nor a disorder. So I think it's really important for us when we use these terms, and they are terms that are considered medical, and we're not going to change the terms, but in New Zealand, they took it upon themselves to do something about it. It is not a disorder. It is not a deficit. And I think the sooner we begin to think of it in that fashion, the easier it's going to be for us to really see the value and the benefit that we all will get from working with our coworkers. So workplace challenges, and it all begins in the hiring process, and there it's only the start. But I want to go through some of this, and these are some things that you can consider doing in this process alone, and we'll continue and look into other aspects. But here it's where it starts, right? In the posting. And what you can do here is to use clear and plain language. Avoid vague or complex phrases, acronyms, right? The acronyms, the idioms that are only known and understood internally, and other non-clear verbiage. If you really want to make your place attractive to individuals that think differently, these are some of the things that you can do. List only the essential qualifications with tasks clearly defined so that everyone understands what's going to be expected of the individual to take on this position. List required skills and highlight those a neurodivergent individual may possess and excel in. Consider posting a video where the posting is read out loud and they can access it. So here's the posting to see video where you would literally have someone read the posting to them. Provide a link to your statement of commitment to neurodiversity and disability inclusion and emphasize the flexibility that you're able to provide. Focus on the deliverable, not the process. Be effective in your communication. So now we move into the interviews. And oh my goodness, we need help in the interview phase. We tend to prefer extroverted individuals because they're come with energy, eager to take on your question, ready to answer, ready with their own questions to pose for you, right? Check yourself and aim to be inclusive and think of others who are maybe introverted or who have a condition. It is up to you to really truly set the stage. Be flexible and offer options: an in-person interview, a Zoom interview with a camera on or off, and you can ask all candidates what their preference is, or a video recording because if that's how they're most comfortable. Ask what time of day of the week works best for them. There's some individuals who are totally on, but not till the afternoon or first thing in the morning. So I think to be able to be flexible around this is really, really helpful. And I understand the scheduling issues that occur, but save a few interview spots so that you can offer a different variety. Provide schedule breaks in between when more than one interview is scheduled. Provide questions ahead of the interview, preferably at least a week before, and let them know a question may be asked not on the list during the interview itself. So no surprises, because I know that there are individuals that really believe that the only way to interview is to see how they're going to react on the spot. Let them know that might be a question of that nature asked. Provide water, snacks, if a long day and ask if they have any allergies. All of this benefits everyone, but you will definitely be inclusive. You get to the hiring and the offer phase. Be clear. Provide information on benefits and resources. Explain the process, including the probation period if applicable. Explain the review process. And I know that you're just hiring them, but for individuals who really see themselves there, to understand that, after a year, you will have a review process, will be asked to do this or asked to contribute in this way, or in order to get a raise here, you have to work on a project. So be sure to ask your supervisor about projects that qualify, whatever it may be. That transparency right at the beginning really sets them at ease. Very, very important. Onboarding, provide an outline schedule of what it's going to look like. Be sure to allow for breaks again. Keep introductions to a manageable size group. Do not have them meet everyone all at once. It's break up the teams, and even within teams, maybe you need to break it up into sub-teams. Be aware, ask, and remove distractions such as noise, smells, lighting, furniture, whatever it may be that could potentially cause someone to be too distracted to really participate. Be sure to check in later, a week, a month, set up check-ins. Be open to and act on feedback. Be receptive to the feedback. You want them to really thrive. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that occur in the workplace that are very troubling, I think, once we learn a little bit more about it. So a recent Psychology Today article, The Strain of Masking, Reclaiming Our Neurodivergent Selves, by Dr. Praslova, who I mentioned, who wrote the book, The Canary Code, describes masking in this way. The act of suppressing or camouflaging neurodivergent traits, behaviors, or needs to fit into a neurotypical workplace culture. It often involves mimicking others, social behaviors, suppressing natural expression, and hiding sensory challenges. So imagine if you had to do this on a daily basis, how exhausted you would be by the end of the day. And then to be asked to participate in an after-work activity would be almost impossible. So keeping this in mind, we're going to look at masking a little deeper. So why masking occurs? Dr. Praslova tells us it's fear of judgment or stigma. Fear of bullying, because yes, bullying occurs in the workplace. Concerns about career progression or being perceived as not promotable. A lack of accommodations or understanding from colleagues and managers. So what can we do about masking? This is what it looks like. Stifling signs and monitoring movements. So suppressing the movements like fidgeting and effortfully adopting neurotypical mannerisms. You literally restrain yourself from what is truly you being yourself so that you fit in and don't draw attention to yourself. Preparing scripts, rehearsing socially acceptable responses to avoid saying the wrong thing in meetings or casual conversations. So it's constantly monitoring yourself and having something that you have practiced so that you can fit in. People pleasing, saying yes to requests to avoid confrontation or to fit in and not be seen as different, even when you're overloaded, or even when you know that this is something that really causes you a lot, you will say yes. Holding back, not expressing unique ideas or downplaying talent out of fear of being bullied. Facial expressions may not always convey what is typically expected. So these are examples that occur in the workplace. And what are the dangers of masking for our coworkers? Exhaustion and burnout, and we can see why. Suppressing natural behaviors leads to emotional and physical fatigue. true fatigue. It also contributes to a long-term stress, making it harder to recover and recharge. All of this leads to more sick days, potential headaches, migraines, all of these things that are simply exhaustion. The erosion of the self. Over time, the line between the authentic self and the mass self blurs, and it leaves the individual questioning, who am I? What am I actually doing? How is it that I need to thrive and be well? The lack of belonging. If you're constantly changing to fit in, then who is your authentic self? And don't we say, bring your authentic self to work? And yet, this is what happens. Mental health struggles. There are correlations between masking and increased anxiety, depression, and even suicidal ideation. And for this, I encourage to please seek out professional help. This is serious. Delayed recognition of burnout. Masking can hide workplace strain as employees may feel compelled to pretend and they're coping even when they're not. So it's a facade during the workday. And I know that many of us have a work personality and a personal home personality. That's different. This is an actual hiding of who you are in order to be able to be where you are at. So dealing with masking, ask employees what works and does not work for them. Follow up consistently, demonstrate that all employees are supported in developing their strengths. So you have to be a manager, a supervisor that asks. And as a co-employee, if as a colleague, if you see one of your colleagues, have a conversation. And it's not that you have the power to change it because you're colleagues, but you could be that good listener for them. Normalize flexibility, and this helps everyone, right? Allow employees to choose environments and work styles that work best for them, such as remote work. And this is concerning because I know that there is a move to trying to get people back into the offices, flexible hours or quiet spaces. And I think that's fine if that's a goal of your company or whatever it may be, or you have a job that requires you to be on site. But the flexibility then can be with hours, with breaks, with providing quiet spaces. So there's still room for that flexibility. Limit meetings and do not insist on participation in social occasions. We have to understand, and the comments of like, oh, so-and-so is not here again. Someone has to interrupt that comment and say, yes, I'm so glad you noticed. They're such an awesome colleague. They do great work, right? It doesn't matter that they're not there for that. They are there for when it matters for work. It intensifies the pressure on their colleagues to mask or to show up. And it's not a healthy situation for them. Ensure evaluations by outcomes. Too often employees are evaluated based on personality and mannerisms or the required process. This forces the exhausting masking and may result in deep burnout. Instead, evaluate performance by clear, objective, and transparent criteria central to the specific role. That's what we should be looking at. Communicate to everyone that this is going to be the way it is. It's not about the personality, right? It is not about the mannerisms. It is about the criteria of the role and what is expected to be completed for the role. And address a toxic culture if you have a toxic culture. First of all, it's to recognize you have a toxic culture. But environments where bullying and toxic positivity are common, it pushes employees to mask even further. This can occur in the selection process. It can occur on committees. It can occur during the promotion process. It can occur anywhere. And it requires a true diligent colleagues and supervisors and managers to be aware of it. The other thing we need to be always aware of are the inequities, because inequities continue to exist. From the October 2023 Deloitte Center for Integrated Research, We have to recognize that programs are not inclusive of all neurodivergent professionals. Often the tendency, and later on when I share some of the companies that are doing this work and doing it fairly well, but the tendency is to focus on just one group. It could be that they focus on ADHD employees, or they focus on individuals with autism, or they focus on whatever it may be that fits under the umbrella. But that is the only group that they focus on. And it's a great start. It's not a criticism whatsoever, but the need to expand and begin to include others is also there. So for colleagues to recognize that and to say, hey, this is great work we're doing here, but if we just do this little bit more, it would include others. And I think that that's the help that everybody can provide. Acknowledging that each individual may have specific needs, I think that's really important for us to recognize as well. A program which focuses on the autism spectrum alone. Now that can help those individuals, and some of that focus will also help others. But by including potentially other activities or other possible outlets at work, can include others under the umbrella. Bias and equity issues may also be at play. And here is where I talk a little bit about girls and women are less likely to be diagnosed as neurodivergent. Also, lower income individuals are less likely to be diagnosed. They tend to receive less support during their formative years, and that's because often lower income individuals attend schools with less funding, less opportunity to be diagnosed at an earlier stage, and they don't have the ability to provide the extra help that these students may need. Mid and late career workers may also be overlooked. Some may choose not to participate in neurodiversity programs for a variety of reasons, including generational conditioning, right? You're told that, no, that's for younger, or that's for school age kids, or whatever it may be. But it is something to be aware of, that others may be undiagnosed, and there could be a process that you could offer. Many mid and late career workers, again, go undiagnosed. Strategies. There is no one size fits all. And I think it's really important for you to realize this. You may try something and you realize that it didn't work, or and that's because you need to try something else, because it's not just a one and done. But you set clear expectations, provide structure and that consistency in the performance, in the way you communicate, and in the daily routines that are going to be expected. Keep workflows and the structure consistent. Provide step-by-step instructions where they apply, and use there's so many project management tools out there now to help everyone stay on track. And these can be very helpful for everyone, not just individuals that fall under the umbrella. It is for everyone. And it also sets clear delineation as to what the tasks are, when the tasks are done, and who is responsible for the task, as opposed to, yeah, we need to get this done. Okay, yeah, maybe by a week or so. That is not a helpful timing. It's not direct as to who's going to be responsible for it. Come promotion time, who's going to get credit for it. So all of this provides structure, and consistency is a benefit to all. Make work for everyone. A few small adjustments can greatly improve comfort and productivity. Consider flexible work, like, of course, we've spoken about this a little bit, or I spoke about it, remote or hybrid options. Try to maintain at least some of it if possible, and I understand there are positions where this is not possible. Offer accommodations such as quiet areas or noise canceling headsets, right? They are much more readily available. Often people have their own that they like to bring in, and that's completely acceptable. Adjustable lighting. Lighting has a lot to do with mood and how people can finish their work. So I think it's important for you to offer that as well. Movement breaks, being able to just take a walk, take a 5-minute break someplace, and not look at people like, oh, did you notice how so and so takes a break almost every hour? Fantastic. Join them. Join them. It's just that these little things that we often, because they're not typical, we tend to question, but we question them not in a positive way, as opposed to saying, wow, they take a great break. I think I'll join them tomorrow, right? That's a very different acknowledgement of someone taking a break. Alternative seating to support efficient neurodiversity in the workplace as well. Desk, right? We now have the opportunity to have standing desks. If you're fortunate and can afford one of these that moves up and down, but otherwise just to have the variety within an office space where someone can say, today I want to be at a standing spot, or today I'm going to go sit in a more comfortable seating arrangement. If you're able to offer that, that is fantastic. Again, you're focusing on the outcomes. Do not micromanage. Provide feedback and check-ins. And I know this is hard because this is not the 21st century way or the 20th century way of doing things, right? We micromanage, or we really believe that work was only done in a certain way. We have now learned that work can be accomplished in many ways. The outcomes will all be the same. Customize communication. Talk openly and learn communication preferences to help build strong teams. Ask, right? How would you like me to communicate with you? How would you like to check in? How about if we do one in person and you want to do a few via Zoom? That variety is very comforting for many people. Providing instructions in multiple formats to ensure clarity for everyone. Is it going to be written, verbal, recorded, or use all three, right? And any other that you can think of. Be patient when communicating. Ask employees if they understood, right? And it's okay if not. Have a few repeat back to you to make sure that everyone has captured it, because in repeating it, they may repeat it slightly different. That makes it better to understand. Be open to explaining ideas and instructions in different ways. Once again, use what's available to us. You can record instructions. You can video instructions, right? You can ask someone to volunteer to do a YouTube of how they did it. There's so many ways to engage people to become part of the process of true inclusion. Offer meeting options, sharing agendas in advance, allow written input, use the chat. I see the chat going. I apologize, but I can't look at it at the moment. But that's an excellent way to allow others to communicate and have a say. Give employees the option to keep cameras off during virtual meetings. And I do understand, typically what I do ask is, can everybody please come on camera just for a second, say hello everyone. And I understand now for connectivity issues, for whatever personal reasons you may have, if you need to be off camera for the rest of the meeting, that's perfectly fine. I may ask you to come back at the end, okay? Those are all very acceptable ways of running a meeting. But to insist that everybody be on camera for every meeting can be exhausting for everyone, quite frankly. Foster model a more supportive and efficient environment. Managers need to give themselves grace as well. They are learning and they need to adapt to a different style, very, very possible that they have ever used before in their managerial skills. And they need a grace period. But we also need our managers and our supervisors to come along and to realize where we are today with our workforce. And, but absolutely give them time. Build confidence with coaching and mentoring. Mentorship has proven over and over again that it does work and that it sends a very clear message to individuals that they are valued and that they are wanted, and that not only wanted, but that they want them to be retained, that they want to be retained. So mentorship, coaching, employee resource groups, ERGs, often called business resource groups, BRGs, and here at the university, we call them affinity groups. These all give employees a place to ask questions, build confidence, and grow their careers. Whether it's navigating workplace challenges or learning how to advocate for themselves, all of these resources help employees make the most of their strengths and to really feel included and part of the process. If you are able to have these groups in your environment, I highly recommend that you do. Our groups exist here at the university, and we have one for it named by the group itself, Disabled Employees at the University, acronym DO. Presently, I'm not sure how active it is, but this is for all of our affinity groups. Since COVID, we have struggled a bit in trying to maintain that level of activity that we had pre-COVID. But it exists, and I think it's really important to provide these places for your employees whenever possible. Make inclusion more than a buzzword. Fostering a welcoming culture that includes training on neurodiversity in the workplace and bias awareness, because so much of this is still based on bias, preferences that we have for one way of doing things over another way of doing things. It's a preference, it's a bias. That's what it is. And that, if we really want to be inclusive, we have to do a check on it. Okay, we have to look in the mirror and really see ourselves. Use language that celebrates different experiences and weave neurodiversity into your diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. If you're still lucky to have one, these programs have benefited so many individuals, all of them qualified employees, with their leadership initiatives, and of course, your ERGs, your employee resource groups, or BRGs, business resource groups, or affinity groups, whatever it is that you call them. Inclusive practices should extend to performance reviews by focusing on each person's unique strengths and work style, but always keeping in mind that if you were clear on what the outcome and the task, then you will get to a performance review that is truly fair and inclusive. Make your mental health benefits work for everyone. Employees with neurodivergent conditions may face added stress or anxiety, as we talked about when I shared about the masking. You can see why this would happen at work. To ensure they have access to the right support and other benefits that may include a robust provider network with clinicians who understand neurodiversity. And that really is going to rely on your human resource department, right? Because they're the ones who decide who the providing network is going to be. And it's so important that they ask the right questions. How would you support our neurodivergent employee? What kind of benefits do you have that align with their needs? And it is important for us to ask those questions if you are in HR. Diagnoses and care for adults, teens, and children, because as an employee that you may have on your team, the benefits that they have are for their family, or potentially could be for their young adult children, for their teens, for their young children, for their partners. So it's important that these benefits extend beyond the employee whenever possible. Tools to help parents advocate for school resources, navigate their child's diagnosis. Potentially, you have access to that. Digital content for adults and teens to better understand neurodiversity. Manager workshops and workforce education to truly foster that inclusive environment is so important. Our managers and our supervisors need assistance. It's not that they don't want to help. It's that they often don't know how to help, or they don't know what tools to use, or how it is that they enter a conversation around this topic. So it's important that you provide these workshops for them. And that's why I'm thrilled that so many of you are here with me today. So I do want to I touched briefly previously, but girls, women, and neurodiversity. The research that defined the diagnostic criteria was conducted mainly on male samples just like most and up until more recently, all of it was focused on males. It did not apply to our females or non-binary people. So when neurodivergent girls remain undetected as adults, and that's what happens, they can experience crises in identity and confidence. So because they were missed, right? So they're missed in the schools. ADHD girls, neurodivergent traits are often less disruptive compared to boys. You know, boys are more demonstrative in their behavior sometimes, not always. And what happens then is that they are quicker to get the diagnosis potentially. The known ADHD stereotype, and again, I say stereotype, okay, is of a hyperactive, often white schoolboy getting into trouble at school. All of a sudden, then it will turn into a diagnosis because they go into it and they investigate and they talk to the parents and they bring in the specialists. Often females are more likely to have an inattentive type of ADHD, and that's important to recognize at youth. Their hyperactivity may manifest more subtly, like foot wiggling, rather than actual disruptive behavior. There's also the patriarchy that drills into girls and later women that they need to be agreeable and non disruptive. So any impulse to do otherwise is often quashed. So all of this gets missed. And then what we have are women who are now, thankfully, getting diagnosed and realizing, wow, right? And it's almost like a relief. But now we need to support them in the workplace, and that's up to everyone. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm so glad I'm here because I see, and I do want to leave time for questions. So supportive organizations, I encourage you, once you get the webinars posted, to look into these. Microsoft, they have an amazing program to help disability neurodiversity in hiring. And just even go through their process is amazing. Dell Technologies is another company that has done, again, really good work in this arena. Ernst & Young, another great company. Google Cloud as well. Theirs is specific to autism, so you do have to go into each of them and they will tell you what it is, which of the under the umbrella conditions that they are making headway in. Charles Schwab, neurodiversity at work. Some of them will even tackle more than one, but it is really it. And there are others out there. So please, I do encourage you, when you have the time, to begin to do a little bit more of the digging on your own. It's important for us. I hope this has been just a really good introductory into this topic and how it is and what we can do in the workplace. But the goal is, keep that in mind, to be an inclusive workplace. It is not just about accommodations. It's way more than that. It's about making everyone feel seen, heard, valued, and that they belong and matter. That if they were gone, we would miss them because they mattered. Learn more about your coworkers. If nothing else, do that today. Highlight the positive aspects of neurodiversity. Talk about your coworker who has done some amazing work, even if it wasn't in the neurotypical way, but the result was amazing and everyone in your company has benefited from it, your unit, your team, whatever it may be. Make your workplace an environment where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. That is a truly inclusive workplace. Some few other tips: you have to own your bias, your preferences. We all preference things differently, right? And you have to know yours. Say them out loud and share them so that you diffuse them. Okay, be culturally aware as well. Be aware of dominant culture that still is very, very dominant. Avoid acronyms, jokes, outdated sayings. We don't need that in the workplace anymore. Be a collaborator. Reach beyond your comfort zone. Who's missing? Who should be here? Who should we bring on board, right? That is the true inclusive nature. Lead with humility and authenticity. Look in the mirror and really see yourself. Own yourself and your errors, and then try to fix them. Okay? resources there for you. Please take the time to look, do your own homework. I think it's a wonderful thing to do, and keep learning, right? And with that, I go to Q&A, and Shanta, we've got about 9 minutes, 8, 9 minutes for us to entertain some questions. Thank you, Shanta. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yes, thank you so much, Patricia, for presenting on this. So, right before we go into our Q&A portion of things, if you could please just take a moment to give your feedback here. That QR code that is listed there goes a little bit more in detail with questions on maybe what ideas you have. Obviously, this topic is very relevant. So if you have any other ideas, feel free to share that using that QR code. And then just for the two questions, just what you feel about the content that was presented in this webinar. I want to thank you all for your feedback. I really appreciate all the questions you have. We have quite a lot. So for those that we don't get to, I did want to mention you can go ahead and pass it along to ccapsinfo@umn.edu, especially for those questions that are a little bit more personal or specific. We're happy to pass those on to Patricia and see, what knowledge she can share additionally for that. And I'll just give you guys a second to take time on that survey, and then we'll move right into our questions. All right, so I'll just move into our questions here. Again, like I mentioned, thank you so much for all of the questions you have for Patricia here. Glad to see the excitement and investing in employees and others that you might know that are neurodivergent, or maybe yourself. That could be possible too. So for our first question here is, are there industries that have higher or lower proportions of neurodiverse employees, and how should that affect our approach?
Thank you for the question. First of all, there are some industries, and if you look at the list that I gave of the companies that have really realized that they could benefit, our IT area, and often they say that some industries that have repetitive tasks work really well. But again, I caution, because if you look at the umbrella and you see everyone that is under that umbrella, it depends. And that's what's, if you walk away with one thing from today's seminar, is that it really depends. And it's on us to learn about our coworkers and what they can do best and how we can help support that work, and our supervisors and managers to be able to assign work specific, so that you really can complete the task and you thrive and you move up the echelon. And then for our companies to recognize that they're supporting a vast group of individuals, and they're trying to make them all do the best that they can. So I hesitate to tell you that this is a company that does really well with this, but because we should not be put in a little box. Now, if you want to be in a little box, great, then let them know what your box is. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So how do you suggest we handle the toxic culture when it's coming from far above our level in the workplace as someone with neurodivergence?
Yeah. I think that's really, really difficult. And I'm sorry that that's the environment you're in. I think one of the best things you can do is to model the right behavior. Model the right behavior, get your immediate colleagues to begin to model that behavior and to understand. And you can begin to meet and just say, hey, we know we're not supported, but this is how we're going to roll. And then get your managers and your supervisors on board, right? And it's like you're modeling it from the down and you're going to move it up. And eventually the two shall meet, right? But I think that is unfortunately one of the few ways that you can do that work. When the top is unwilling to recognize, there's very little that we can do other than to model the behavior and move it up to them.
Great, thank you. So what is the best way to handle a situation where individuals with neurodiversity causes harm, disturbances, or unrest in the workplace? For example, misreading social cues or tics related to Tourette syndrome, either as a coworker or a manager.
Mm. Um, that is difficult, and I understand the difficulty in that. But at the same time, if the individual is able to complete the task that's asked of them, then what the manager and or the supervisor has to do is have an honest conversation with their employee and say, your work is Fantastic, but we have some other issues that we need to talk about. How can we support you so that this is not as disruptive to others? What do you need so that we can help it so that you continue to thrive here with us? And at the same time, let others and model behavior from those few co-employees that this individual may have that understand the situation. And I know I spent 15 years as a teacher, and my students in the preschool through 12th grade preparatory school, and we had students along all the spectrums. And I think the one thing I am the proudest of is how we included those children in everything. And it was the other kids that we had to work with so that they understood that that student was getting their work done. That student was contributing to the class. Yes, they had disruptive behavior, but it was for us to figure out where the student could sit or where the student could be so that it was the least disruptive. The learning continued, just like the work will continue. So it's on us. I do believe that.
Great. Yeah, this will go nicely into the next one. Then, do you have any recommendations on how to ask for and get accommodations? Also, maybe any recommendations on how to manage up or educate your manager or director on neurodiversity?
Invite them to this webinar.
Yeah.
Have a lunch and learn together. Okay, we are really incredibly fortunate here at the University of Minnesota. We have a disability resource center. We have an office for digital accessibility. We have individuals that are dedicated to this work just about in every college here in UNIT. I am the director of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility here at the libraries. And my position is replicated so that they can work with their individuals and their units. And I think that that's really important, but it's unique, right? Many of you may be at smaller companies where you are the it person and that's it. I think what you can do is, I mean, I started out sort of joking, but that might be it. Provide a lunch, show them a webinar. There are others available out there. Read, highly recommend The Canary Code by Dr. Pazlova, and do a reading together, right? There's so many articles and journals out now that are doing this work on how best to approach it. And I think that that is a start. That's a start.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'll just do one more. From the EEO context, how does management approach accommodations when neurodivergent employees self-select but refuse to self-identify as having a disability?
That's an excellent question. And it is rather difficult. And part of it has, I think the difficulty, we've created it because we have not been as inclusive as we say we are. If we really achieve that truly inclusive environment, then individuals would not be afraid to self-disclose. And self-disclosing then leads them to get the accommodations that are available to them. So we're caught in this sort of cycle, right? We say, well, tell us, and then we'll accommodate. How about we begin to accommodate for everyone? And then I really believe that people will feel less fear and maybe disclose. It's all based on fear. Fear is, it's real. We all need to, as far as people who are working is because they need to work. I have yet to meet the person that, well, I guess there are some, but I don't hang out with them. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So with that, we'll just wrap it up here. So if you can go on to the next slide deck, that'd be wonderful. Again, I want to thank you all for your questions. If you still want to share those, feedback, whichever, ccaps@umn.edu, and we will make sure to pass those on to Patricia. So CCAPS now offers workforce development solutions designed to equip employees with targeted knowledge and skills for your organizational needs. Our programs include industry-driven bachelor's and master's programs, along with over 15 non-credit certificates and over 90 individual courses. So if someone in your organization would like to learn more, please schedule a consultation with our business development manager, Beth Laurie. QR code is also listed there. So Patricia also teaches quite a few of our courses too. So if you're interested, something that is a little bit more workforce development, like folks were asking for education in this area, feel free to reach out to Beth for that. So next slide, please. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll send a link to the webinar recording within a week of today's webinar. The recording will also be posted to our CCAS webinar archive as well as our CCAS YouTube page. And University of Minnesota employees, you do receive well-being points for listening to our webinars. So please view the link to the form on the slide to check that out. And our college's contact information will be also on the last slide of this presentation. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Patricia, thank you again. And you all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.